Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Glad you stopped by. If it's your first time here, please hit that subscribe button and the bell for notifications. By all means, crush the like button, really helps me out. Today, I wanted to talk about someone. Um, I've seen a few reports, and a lot of people are talking about this certain senator, uh, old Brad Sherman. Brad Sherman is actually a pretty powerful congressman or representative. He is from California, a Democrat. He was elected a long time ago. He's been in Congress since back in the 1900s. It was back when he was first elected to Congress. So he's been there a while. Now, old Brad came out and has said, he said a lot of things which were ridiculous, offensive, and just really crappy. And a lot of, I want to say uneducated, but they're not uneducated. He knows exactly what he was doing and what he was saying. Um, if you haven't seen the clip or the video of him on the floor in committee, going over what he went over, he proposed a bill to ban buying cryptocurrency and using cryptocurrency in the United States, which I don't know if it was him, but the price of Bitcoin skyrocketed right after he did that, up about over $1,000. It was, I think it went up to like $7,200, and it was only, barely breaking 6,000 per Bitcoin before that. So maybe he did have something to do with it. But I'm going to play some of the clips that I've cut them down to certain parts, and I wanted to kind of dissect them and then tell you a little bit about Brad. First off, a lot of stuff is my opinion, except for the facts. The facts are the facts; they're real about him. But my opinion is that he thinks he's an elitist who has contempt for the American people. For me, for you, definitely for me. Um, I don't know who you are. Probably a lot of you aren't even in the United States that are watching this, but um, he talks about money, and he has no clue. He's so far removed from the common person now. It is ridiculous. But like I said, he's been in a microcosm of being in Congress since back in the 1900s. So I could see he went through the whole financial crisis of 2008, and he was there, 10 years before that. Um, so he has he really, I guess he shouldn't be that in touch with the common person. Um, he is on two very, very important committees: the finance and I believe foreign affairs. Yes, financial services and foreign affairs. I'm gonna play a clip for you where he talks about a $100 bill, and that he wants to bring back larger denominations, because $100 bill is not elitist enough. It's all I can really get out of it, except for drug dealers. Um, well, here, I'll play it.
A lot has happened since the $10,000 limit was set. We've had a tremendous amount of inflation, so it's really a much smaller amount of value. The $100 bill has not been indexed for inflation, and so what used to be a maximum level of currency that only a drug dealer would touch is now almost in general circulation, and there.
So you can see, it seems like the serfs or the commoners before, they weren't really able to have a $100 bill. It was a big deal, and now pretty much everyone has a $100 bill, so it's no big deal. And they need to probably bring back the $1,000 bill, even the $10,000 bill. Um, So the only people that should have $100 bills or big bills would be elitists like him, and the only commoner would be a drug dealer. That's what I got from what he said. Um, Super douchey. Uh, Another thing that he said, which just shows how out of touch this dude is, where he talked about income for an average restaurant, uh, which I'll play the clip for you now.
30 years ago, it wouldn't be unusual for a restaurant to have more than 10,000 in cash at the end of the night. Today, it's all, it's mostly credit cards.
So you can see there, um, and he said 30 years ago, an average restaurant or a restaurant would take in $10,000 in cash at the end of the night. Now, 20 some years ago, I was a 19, 20 some year old, and I was assistant manager at Domino's. Not just any Domino's, one of the biggest producing Domino's in the state and the country. And once in a blue moon, we would have a $10,000 week. Maybe twice a year, maybe once a year. But whenever that happened, the manager got a Rolex, um, or every time. So managers had a few Rolexes. People got bonuses. It was not a normal thing. And this is just 20 some years ago. So it just shows you the kind of restaurants and way of thinking he has, that like an average mom and pop's cafe was taking in 10 grand in a day. Um, it's like, oh, honey, we didn't make our 10 grand. We only made $7,000 today serving our coffee and hash. I guess we can't pay those two waitresses their $2 an hour. I mean, it's ridiculous that he thinks that. Um, by contrast, nowadays, minimum wage is like what, tripled? So that would be like a $30,000 day for an average restaurant. What he's talking about, just completely out of touch, completely does not know what the hell's going on, and he's on the finance committee. That's just, oh god. Um, the next thing he talked about was getting into the banking industry, which he does know a lot about. Um, and I don't know if you're aware of this in the United States. If you make a deposit for $10,000 or more, the IRS is automatically notified that you have made this deposit for over $10,000. And the government usually wants to know why you made a deposit for $10,000, where you got that money. Very, very intrusive, ridiculous. Now, really stupid people will do that. If you're a criminal, or you're just not an idiot, you deposit $9,999, and the bank does not legally have to notify the IRS. If the bank notifies the IRS, you most likely get audited, period, anyway. But it's an easy thing to circumvent. And he talks about raising that, because $10,000 is just chump change now. Everybody deposits $10,000 all the time. You have a garage sale, $10,000, easy.
Because the value of the largest bill is declined, and the value of the largest amount of money in cash you can deposit while triggering a report has declined. On the other hand, the banks face more and more reports because, again, $10,000 isn't what $10,000 was decades ago. But the amount of legitimate uses of large amounts of cash have declined as more and more people use credit cards, debit cards, ETFs, etc.
Okay, now, next I want to go over, before we go into anything else, cryptocurrency. If you don't really know about crypto, and this is, you're not subscribed to my channel, you haven't watched all my videos, so if you're new to it, cryptocurrency is basically a new kind of money, an electric money that is completely decentralized. There's no government involved. There's no one that owns it. There's no one that runs it. There's no one that can control it. Um, it is secure because it can't be counterfeited, it can't be duplicated, and there is a set supply. You can't just print more, like Bitcoin. You can't just make more Bitcoin. There's only like 40 some million Bitcoin. That's it. If it's lost, which a lot of them have been lost, they're lost. The supply dwindles, the price will go up. Um, so that's basically how cryptocurrency works. Now, there's different kinds of cryptocurrencies that are set up for different things. Some of them are made for specifically peer-to-peer money transfers. Some of them are made as a utility token to run like a platform or an app. Like a really dumbed down version of it would be like an in-game currency. That's a cryptocurrency used in a tiny ecosystem that people already use. Um, but Bitcoin is more on a like digital gold. Okay. Um, the things about cryptocurrencies is that they're ridiculously fast, ridiculously secure, and ridiculously cheap to send back and forth and to pay someone. Um, that's how it works. Now the legacy banking systems, they're still the same as they were set up way back in the mid 1900s, like back in the 60s and 50s, where if I want to wire money, like say my friend Lee, he's in Europe, he gives me a call. He's like, oh, I got drunk and tried to fight a cow again, so I need $10,000 for lawyer fees and to get out of jail. Now, if I go down to my bank and I want to wire him $10,000, they're going to charge me a ton of money to send it. Okay, probably a couple $100. Then it's going to take like 3 to 5 business days to get to him. So it could be a week. So literally, not figuratively, on a Friday, I could get a ticket, fly to Europe with the cash, give it to him, get him out of jail and give him the money, hang out for a bit, and then fly back. It would be not much more expensive, a little more expensive, but it would be way, way faster. Now that's a kind of on a grand scale, like wiring $10,000 cross payments. If you're working overseas or even out of state and you need to send money to someone, send it Western Union or MoneyGram or whatever, there's big fees involved. Whereas with cryptocurrency, you could send it in seconds. Nobody has to go to an office. It goes right to the person directly. It takes a few seconds and it costs pennies. Which we can look at it. I'll pull up as one of the easiest wallets. This is the Exodus wallet that I don't really use that much. But if I want to send someone, the most expensive currency really to spend is Bitcoin. So let's say I'm going to send that $10,000. $10,000 US dollars. 1.4 Bitcoin. It's going to cost $1.74. And they, on all honesty, probably have it in about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Now that's Bitcoin. All right, so there's different cryptocurrencies for different things. XRP is set up and works with banks for cross-border transfers. So if I wanted to send that $10,000 in XRP, it would be less than a cent, less than 1 penny, and it would take seconds, have it within a minute. So who is helped by cryptocurrencies? Everybody. People. The people. They're faster to send, they're cheaper, they are more secure, and they're more private. They're not easily tracked. Some of them are impossible to track. Those are different kinds. But they're better for people. They give people back control of their money. They give people back control of their banking. Whereas it's not controlled by the government, it's decentralized. Now, who is hurt by cryptocurrencies? Banks. I can send my friend the $10,000 and I don't have to go to my bank. I don't have to go through an interrogation. He doesn't have to go through an interrogation when he gets the money to prove who he is, why he wants the money. If he deposits the money, why did you deposit so much money? Where did you get this money? All of those things that would happen don't have to happen. But banks don't get the fees. They don't get the money. They don't get the business. The money is kept in my pocket because I don't have to pay those fees. So banks and payment processors are what's hurt when it comes to cryptocurrencies. And in the more broad sense, government control because of the currency. Now, back to old Brad. So Brad, like I said, is a congressman for a long time. And if we go to opensecrets.org, we can see where Brad gets his money from. Now, who is paying Brad and giving Brad money? And how much money does he have? He has raised $1.3 million. He's only spent $543,000, so he's got over $2.25 million cash on hand. Where did the money come from? His top contributors are the Royal Business Bank, which is a Chinese American bank. Capital Group companies, everybody knows Capital. Northrop Grumman, that's military industrial complex aerospace. Allied Wallet. Who is Allied Wallet? Allied Wallet is a credit card processing merchant service. Completely the cryptocurrency's complete enemy, totally taking money away from them, giving it to this woman here, using her computer, not to Allied Wallet or to the banking system. Who else? UBSG. UBS is the largest bank in the world, the largest Swiss bank in the world. Even though UBS United States, UBS is a Swiss bank, Swiss investment bank, the largest in the world. So this is a foreign bank that is one of the biggest money contributors to Brad. Now, if you go to campaign committee and PAC combined, we notice another similarity. Capital Group's number one, CPAs, and the Zurich Insurance Group. Why are Swiss companies, Swiss insurance companies, and Swiss banks funding a senator or representative that is in charge of the United States Financial Services Committee? Not a little bit. They're top contributors. Number one industry is securities and investment, real estate, insurance, lawyers. Those are the top industries that are giving this guy money. Okay, so that's who's giving this guy money. This massive connection to the Swiss banking system. Now, it has been said by someone that cryptocurrencies are dangerous because it's like having a Swiss bank account in your pocket. Do you know who said that?
To even do simple things like tax enforcement. Because if in fact you can't crack that at all, government can't get in, then everybody's walking around with a Swiss bank account in their pocket. All right?
So, the only people who can have Swiss bank accounts are the elite, which is what this dude just exudes. That it's okay for them. It's okay for them in their $1,000 bills and their $10,000 bills. It's not okay for the regular average Joe. They have to pay all their taxes. If you make $1 billion, you don't have to pay your taxes. Amazon. I mean, the inequality when it comes to taxes is ridiculous. But you know, the United States didn't even have an income tax until fairly recently in its history. And it was fine. But that's a whole nother thing. So, Swiss banks, I don't want to say they own this guy, but they are his biggest contributors. It's a little bit of a conflict of interest as far as my opinion, but that's who gives him the most money. And credit card processors. So, Now, that's who is giving Brad Sherman money. Now, let's hear what Brad Sherman had to say.
See, cryptocurrency is moving in to fill the role. And so we can have all the suspicious activity reports, limitations on the maximum dollar size of any one unit of currency that we want. The Hamas website provides detailed instructions on how you can send that terrorist organization cryptocurrency. If you look at the advertising for the boosterism of cryptocurrency, it reads like something between libertarianism and anarchism. The don't let anybody know what you're doing, especially the government. Here's how it's secure and secret. Here's how it can meet your needs if you're a tax evader, a drug dealer, or a terrorist. And I would regard cryptocurrencies as the plastic gun of currency. That is to say, it can be used for a legitimate purpose. You can shoot a deer with a plastic gun. But the fact is that the advantage it has over traditional mechanisms is singularly a benefit for those who wish to commit crime. And I look for colleagues to join with me in introducing a bill to outlaw cryptocurrency purchases by Americans so that we nip this in the bud, in part because not an awful lot of our international power comes from the fact that the dollar is the standard unit of international finance and transactions. Clearing through the New York Fed is critical for major oil and other transactions.
So, it's a danger. And one of the things he said that really, really got me is that it has a singular purpose. Number one, I said that it will give you can send money cheaper, you can send money faster, you can send money more secure, and you can track everything. You don't know what your bank is doing, and banks have been in more illegal activity, not just on scam stuff, but straight working with governments, drug cartels, so on and so forth. They've been caught, and they may have made $1 billion. Even if they're caught, nobody goes to jail. They get fined $10 million. You get fined $10 million. You made $1 billion. That is good business. That's very good business. So the one thing I want to play this other clip again, because he says that there's only good for one thing.
But the fact is that the advantage it has over traditional mechanisms is singularly a benefit for those who wish to commit crime.
Now, there's tons of other reasons that cryptocurrency is good, but I just went over a couple of them. And when it comes to people like this, they always want to bring up that money laundering, drugs, blah blah blah. All of those things existed forever before Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was invented. If you watch the movie Blow, when the cops go in the house, there's not stacks and stacks and stacks of USB drives or computers with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency on them. There's cash. Now, they don't like cash because that's as close as you can get to an anonymous exchange of value. I mean, if I give you $1,000, we don't tell anybody. Nobody knows why I did or that I did. But when it comes to credit cards and electronic funds, they can track it. They know what you're doing, and they know why you're doing it. There's no need for them. That's a violation of privacy. In the United States, I mean, I'm not sure how it is in the UK and Russia and all whatever. But in the United States, privacy used to be really, really important. And it's in our Constitution. And these assholes violate it constantly. And that's one of the things I think that they're they're the most scared of, is that this literally takes their power away, a lot of their power away. Um, and they'll complain about, this will make it harder to put sanctions on countries. A lot of it's still trackable. But I mean, it's hard for them to complain about this is going to hurt our sanctions with Iran when they gave Iran a troop transport full of cash. There's numbers from 150 billion to 1.8 billion cash, and then 54 billion other ways. But there was a giant plane filled with U.S. dollars, British pounds, and euros, pallets and pallets stacked. So I mean, it's taking away some of their power. And make no mistake, what he says is completely true. That it's heralded by libertarians and anarchists alike, which is true. Because they think, don't let anybody know what you're doing, especially the government. You know what I'm going to tell you? Don't let anyone know what you're doing, especially the government, unless you want to tell them. If not, it's your privacy, it's your business. They don't need to know. Um, and everybody does need security. Everyone does need privacy. Uh, it needs a lot more privacy, especially in the United States. Um, which you can hear in this clip where he talks about them losing a lot of the power that they have because the U.S. dollar has been weaponized. It is the chief weapon now to use against a country. That's what we hit them with before we send in our troops. The dollar is definitely weaponized, and it's weaponized locally too. I mean, domestically.
Irrelevant. So whether it is to disempower our foreign policy, our tax collection enforcement, or our traditional law enforcement, the purposes of cryptocurrency, the advantage it has over sovereign currency is solely to aid in the disempowerment of the United States and the rule of law. So I think this is a good amendment. It puts us in the right direction, and my time has expired.
If the government doesn't like your business or doesn't like certain things you could do, they can put pressure on a bank to unbank you. What was it Project Choke Point? You look that up. This was under the Obama administration, 2013. The FDIC. It was a big push about gun control. They're not going to get gun control, so they put pressure on banks to unbank gun dealers and any businesses that I think it was mainly Democrats they didn't like, that didn't fit with their policies. So legal, law-abiding U.S. citizens were unbanked just because the government didn't like or agree with what they did for a living, which is wrong. That's goes against every principle of the United States. I mean, they're pretty much doing that right now with like marijuana dispensaries. You can't deposit any of that money into any federal insured bank. You can't deposit money that you make legally into your own bank account. You're not allowed to accept credit cards. You're not allowed to accept debit cards. The government has a complete hold on it. And that's why he talks about cryptocurrencies moving in. And they're not going to allow that. Like people can have their marijuana dispensary where it's legal in that state, and they can accept cryptocurrency. Whereas before, the federal government could make it tough for them, could make them have tons of cash on hand, to make them a target for thieves, for armed robbery, make them have to bulletproof their store, to have armed guards. That was all forced on them because they didn't have the freedom to have a legal business that someone in power did not agree with. Um, that's about it. If you look at Project Choke Point, it's pretty bad. A lot of things are coming out now about it that are being like declassified, and they're it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad what they did. But now, so I went over Brad Sherman, what he's about. Um, but no one really is talking about this knight on the white horse that came in after he spoke and he was done. Um, I'll play this clip for you. It's Warren Davidson. He is a Republican from Ohio, and he championed a bill last year, the token taxonomy bill, which is pretty common sense, good legislation. But watch what happens after Mr. Sherman was done with his rant.
In the right direction, and my time has expired.
Thank you. For what purpose does the gentleman from Ohio seek recognition?
Move to strike the last word.
The gentleman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Regarding my colleague's commentary on things that aren't in this bill with cryptocurrency, I would refer him to Billy Madison in a certain scene. May his wishes with regard to cryptocurrency never occur. With regard to this bill that we're here to talk about, I want to commend Mr. Cleaver and my colleagues really across the committee on the Bank Secrecy Act. And, you know, the connection here is the Fourth Amendment does not say, nor is there an asterisk in the footnotes that says if you have nothing to hide, then you have nothing to fear. The Fourth Amendment guarantees protection of privacy for Americans and across our nation. And so I really want to echo Mr. Perlmutter's concerns and appreciation for safeguards for privacy, for personally identifiable information, and for civil liberties with how FinCEN accesses information. And as our banks begin to talk more about how to share information, that we would do that with respect to just a knowledge of what has gone on in our banks. With Operation Choke Point, we saw people who were complying with the laws of their local jurisdictions being debanked. They were essentially saying, you're not going to bank those people, are you? And the government enforced that. And when we have information sharing, if those safeguards don't remain in place, we could find law-abiding Americans being debanked from their current bank and effectively locked out of the entire banking system. And so when you see that, these are tools of totalitarian regimes. They haven't been used that way entirely in the U.S., but we do hear voices advocating for that, and we saw voices denying that Operation Choke Point was taking place. And I, again, want to commend Mr. Lukemeyer for his work on that in our committee. I am cautiously optimistic.
Now I don't like most of the guys in office. You know, I don't trust them. I think once you get above the state level, you've been compromised. You had to get where you're at, unless it was a fluke for you to get in there. Like there's a couple, but every now and then, man, I am impressed, and Davidson really is pretty impressive. Like I say, he's a Republican from Ohio. You can look at his money that comes in: House Freedom Fund, manufacturing, Club for Growth, foundations, Senate Conservatives Fund. Not a lot of banks or special interest there. And he's raised $974,000, much less, but he's spent out most all that money. He only has $110,000 on hand. So the industries are like funds, leadership PACs, retirees, manufacturing, distribution, and then last is securities and investments. Not an endorsement for this guy or anything, but I mean, I like him. I'm not in Ohio, so I'm not voting for him, but he seems like a pretty cool dude. And I did tweet to him because I really appreciate what he said. You know, standing up after this jackwagon was up there flapping his gums about a bunch of crap that's just not true. But stay informed. Hit that, like I said, crush that like button. Please hit the subscribe button if it's your first time here. Leave me a comment, and I'll definitely answer you. I like interacting with you guys. I am Satoshi Sean, and I'll see you in the next video.